Well, it's Labor Day of 2015, and we decided we should do an interview with Joyce Jackson, who is one of the repositories of all our family history. So, we have some questions we're going to ask her, and Joyce is the youngest daughter of Jesse Elizabeth Hunter and James Gordon Hunter, and she is the sole remaining of the three of them, and we're going to get some family history from her today. So here we go. Joyce, we sent out questions to the family, and they sent us answers. They sent us questions that they wanted to get answers to. So the first one is going to be from Keith, and Keith wanted to know, how did James Gordon Hunter come to the United States, and how did he end up in Washington?
Okay, James was my father. Entered this hemisphere in Halifax.
Okay.
And he came with, I'm not sure, 3 or 4 good friends. And they traveled across Canada on their way to Victoria, where they were all hired to work on the Parliament building that was being constructed. They worked there until Canada stopped the funding of the Parliament building to send their funds into the war effort to help bring World War II to a close a little quicker. And at that point, after working there quite some time, Dad came down to Washington State, to Alderwood Manor, to meet and live with his Uncle Duncan Hunter, father of our grandfather in Aberdeen, James Gordon Hunter. So he lived there with his Uncle Duncan and Aunt Jenny and their 4 sons. And
Do you know what year that was?
I don't know for sure, but I believe that he built them, they lived in a log house, and he built another house there, obviously with their help with the logging and sawing, but he built the house that Gordon and Basil and the family lived in all my life that I know of. And would you ask me?
I was just wondering what year that would have been.
I think I'm quite sure of this. I believe they moved into that house in 1914, Aunt Jenny and Uncle Duncan, the new house. So it would have been probably 1912 or something, I'd say, that he probably came down there. I'm not sure. It would have been in that time frame.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
right in there. And so then what is?
And then how? These questions are from your own son, Keith Jackson, and so then how did Jim Hunter and Jessie Morris get together? That was
Jessie Morris lived across the street. She was first cousin to the Hunter boys because her mother, Elizabeth Stevenson Morris, had married William Morris, the friend of Duncan Hunter. And they had married sisters. Aunt Jenny, Duncan's wife, was sister of Elizabeth. There was a 3rd sister named Priscilla who lived in the Midwest somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, our great-grandmother, my great-grandmother, Agnes Stevenson, lived in the Midwest also around Priscilla. And in time, I don't know at what point, Grandmother Stevenson came to Alderwood to live, and she lived there at the Morris place, but mother to both women. And she lived there till she died, and she was buried on the property there in Alderwood.
Okay, all right. And so Jesse.
Jesse, okay. There were four children, Morris, four children, all born, no, three born in Wisconsin. That was Ruby, who lived till she was 8 or 9, and she died in Alderwood Manor and was also buried on the family property.
Do you know what she died of?
I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was my mother, Jessie Elizabeth Morris, and Uncle Bill, William Morris, and he was 2 years younger than Mom. And then Aunt Ruth came along about 12 years later,
Okay.
and she was born there in Alderwood on the family property.
Okay.
Let's see. Now I gotta find our next question. I should have done that already. Yeah. Let's see. There's number 4. So Gordon and Basil. When did they come to the land? Were they born there also?
Basil, no, Gordon, William was the oldest. William and Gordon and Reuben were all born in Wisconsin. And I believe Basil was born in Alderwood. He was the youngest.
Okay.
Not sure about
Okay.
Reuben. He may have been too, but I think the 3 older in Wisconsin. I know the 2 older were born in Wisconsin.
Okay, and it was Basil who was married.
No,
It was Gordon who was married
that we didn't know about.
to Barbara.
To Barbara, who is the mother of Mary Sample, with whom now we are connected.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, and they lived very briefly there at Alderwood Manor together. Not
Never.
Never. Oh, okay, did not.
He was in the army, so was Basil, and stationed in Florida and North Carolina, down in there during the army spell. And he met Barbara down there, and they were married.
Mhm. When did they begin the meat processing part of the
Oh, that was
operation?
quite a long time after the war ended, and Basil and Gordon were back living at home. That was a long time.
And
They raised pork. They raised
it
wonderful
was-
pork. They had wonderful orchard up there. Well, so did my grandparents, and the orchards were started by Uncle Duncan. There were only about 5 families out there when they first homesteaded, and Uncle Duncan was the early day
arborist or
yes,
organic
and he
gardener?
helped the young families that came into the area get started with their orchards. And
Oh,
stuff.
nice.
Anyway, and the Hunter place up there, they raised strawberries. That was a big thing. And they had chickens. They did eggs too. Those things they took into the early day. Reuben took them in to the early day market because he had a stall on Flower Row there, and he would drive the wagon in with the eggs and the strawberries, basically, to the market as part of the selling there. And then
But that isn't the location of the farmer's market, right?
oh yes,
Oh, that's the same
Oh,
area?
yes, the
Because I know
same-
Lynn talks about
the
them
same Flower
taking.
Row. Yes, that's the
Oh,
same
okay.
one that Basil worked on. Reuben worked on.
They probably helped with the very
Yeah.
beginnings of Pike Place.
Yeah.
Huh? Wow.
So let's see.
Wow,
What else?
way back history. Okay, just that kind of stuff about the early days of the land. And Aunt Ruth's place then was contiguous, right? It actually, or was it a part of the land, the
No.
place that, or it's separate land
Aunt
totally?
Ruth, well, the ranch, as we called the Hunter part, the Morris place, it really was a lovely place. It really was. Our grandmother raised roses. I mean, she had I remember that as a kid. She had a beautiful big rose garden, beautiful. won prizes at the fairs and things like
Oh,
that.
okay.
And
Wow.
somewhere I've got an article about her written up. Anyway, and then there was beautiful big lawn out in front, and we used to play croquet there. I remember that was so
Okay.
much fun. It was really a beautiful place. The Hunters was utilitarian because that's what Aunt Jenny wanted. Aunt Jenny didn't like it out west. She didn't like the trees, and she didn't want to be a pioneer type person. She was from New York. She liked the
City
tall
girl.
houses. She insisted on having the tall houses like they have places in New York so the snow goes off. That's what she wanted. That's what she got. Where grandmother apparently was a more modern looking woman and was into quilting bees, which she
Oh, okay.
quilted beautifully.
Mm.
And they had quilting circles, and women would come, and she had this wonderful rose garden. And out to the left of the front yard, lots of flowers there too. And what I loved, they had a beautiful lily pond there with water lilies floating in it. It was really pretty. And it had, I loved it when I was a kid, there was an arbor effect with a lawn swing in it. Just like you see in pictures.
Wow.
They had one. Grandma had one as part of this
Wow.
yard. And the top part, a lot of it was up here, and then there was quite a slope down to the farm itself.
Oh, okay.
And the house had a beautiful big country kitchen in it with wide windowsills. And even though I was little, I remember that very well. Grandma made wonderful pies, and apple especially, because we had all these apples, you see, and cherries. They had cherry trees, but apples, what I remember, and custard. She made wonderful custard pies because we had these cows, you see.
Legs.
We had Jersey, Guernsey, and Holstein. And the rich cream ones made these wonderful custard pies. And Grandma's always had little golden drops on the top. It showed up when they cooled. And she used to cool them. Once when we went to, a long time ago, went to see Bob Morris, he and I were talking about Grandma's pies. And they'd get set up on these wide windowsills to cool. And you could look out this kitchen window and you looked down at this farm, And there was a barn and a chicken house. And of course the old log house was off there in the distance. And
That
the
sounds so
barn,
idyllic.
the barn was just a great big barn with a big hayloft in it. I remember once, I don't remember it, I was too little, but the boys, the Hunter brothers, Bill and Bob and Gordon Moore, the four cousins, they'd be out. And I remember once Gord jumped out of the hayloft. I don't remember if his leg was broken, but he got pretty hurt. But anyway, and we had a horse out there. Loved that horse. I used to get to ride him, but with my brothers, or somebody with me. But, and I was the only girl.
Did the horse pull the cart for
It-
the produce, or was it just for fun?
I don't know. I don't remember it. I don't think that horse. It might have there on the place working it. I don't know that. I don't think they would have had it just for fun. In those days, everything, life was hard. We did things that we needed to do practically,
Yeah.
But the barn, I remember that. When I was a little bigger, we'd go out there, and Aunt Ruth, have me out there. And she taught me how to milk a cow. I remember I was just little, and I can still see
It's not as easy as it looks, is
little
it?
stool. She'd have me sit on this little stool, and she helped me, And I thought that was wonderful if I got a little bit of milk out there. And she had this little tin cup she saved for me, because then I could hear it, so I knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
And it was warm. Now the thought of more milk made me sick, but I thought it was wonderful when I had gotten it out of the source.
What an idyllic sounding
It was.
place.
It was great.
Yeah.
And when I was out, then I get with Aunt Ruth's help, supervision, I got to gather the eggs and things, you know.
Okay. Yeah.
This little
yeah.
chicken house.
Mhm.
And of course, grandfather, I think I'm right in this. I think my grandfather died the same year that my father died. I
Really?
believe so. Dad died in January. And I think grandfather died at the end of that year or maybe the beginning. It was just about a year after they lost my dad that they lost. So,
Didn't
That
know
was
that.
a double whammy.
oh,
huh?
it was
Yeah.
out there because by then, you know, grandma was getting older.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, things
Okay.
started going down.
Yeah. And then I don't know at what point now, because I was in school, probably 8 or 9 or 10. At one point in time, we rented the ranch, and their name was McKnight. Bill McKnight was the man's name, and he had a son named Billy, who was just a year younger than I, and we were playmates when I go out to Aunt Ruth. And Aunt Ruth had a little kitchen built in the basement. This house was really nice. It had a big basement, and she had a room finished in it in the basement, and equipped it with a stove and a refrigerator and a kitchen chair and all that. That was her kitchen. And when they rented the house, they rented the whole main floor of the house to this
Wow.
family.
Okay.
And Aunt Ruth had the upstairs, which was one big bedroom, and then there was kind of a loft area, and she made it into kind of a sitting room and stuff. So she had that and her kitchen downstairs, so she had to go through their house, but that was all right the way it was laid out. And, you know, they were nice people and all.
Uh-huh.
And so she lived like that until they raised turkeys. The McKnights
Okay.
raised turkeys on the ground there. And then I guess it was about 3 years before World War II started, 3 or 4. See, Uncle Bill, a lot fell on Uncle Bill then. We lived on 103rd and Grandma's house, you know, that Dad had built our house.
Uh-huh.
And he had built Uncle Bill and Aunt Esther and their family a house, and it was on the corner of 104th and Greenwood. It's disappeared now, but it was a real nice house. And so they were really 2.5 or 3 blocks away from us in the North Park area, you know. And then, anyway, Uncle Bill was trying to keep up what we needed kept up on the ranch, and he had his own family, and he worked as a mechanic, and it got to be too much. And he loved it, but I think it got very much too much and I understand that, for Aunt Esther.
Yeah.
Because here he had the weight of all the family. Aunt Ruth wasn't married, Mom was widowed.
Yeah.
You know, it was rough. Anyway, they decided that they had to sell the ranch.
Oh,
And so they put it on the market, and this would have been, I think it was about 3 years before World War II started. And so they sold the ranch, 100 acres, this beautiful house, these wonderful grounds, a developed orchard, a developed farm
gardens.
for $10,000. $10,000.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so the 3 of them ended up with $3,000 and a few dollars
Yeah.
out of the whole
But a
thing.
lot less
And
work
then
to
the
do.
war started, and look what's been done there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
my.
that's how that happened.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, well, and that was one of the questions that Jim, my brother Jim, had, was your memories of, what memories you have of your father and how life was before he passed away. and a lot of that is in what you were just talking
but
about. But we're,
Very little of my father's life do I hardly remember anything about it.
what were
Terry.
you, like 10 years old when he died? Oh, no,
Three.
you weren't
I
even
wasn't
that.
even. I was
That's
just
right.
close to 3.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can't.
My brothers
remember.
were 10 and 11 or something
That's
like
right.
that.
Yeah.
And so I really, the couple things I remember, they're so vague, but I remember them. He was sick for nearly a year before he
Oh.
died. And nowadays he wouldn't have died probably.
You're right. Right.
He would have had
It was-
antibiotics and he would have come out of it.
Mhm.
Here he was, a big strapping Scot, you know,
Isn't
and
that
always
something?
done heavy,
Yeah.
busy work. Big,
Yeah.
and they were treating him for stomach ulcers.
Oh, okay.
And just shortly before he died, oh, sorry, you don't have stomach ulcers, you have peritonitis.
It's your.
And it burst and it killed him, and there was no infection.
Oh.
I mean, there was infection and no antibiotic,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and he died from that.
Yeah. A lot of people did in those
Yeah.
days.
And so, but the few things I remember about him that year when he died, Mom and Dad, you were talking about the iron bed for the bunk beds.
Yeah.
Mom and Dad had one of those brass beds that have the
Post.
poles on them, you know.
Yeah.
I can remember that really well. And I was, you know, a little person then, and it was just natural to climb up on that lower bar, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
because I could go in and visit him, you see. And I can remember this so well that I just would jump like this, you know, bounce like that and hold on to it. And I can remember him saying, he always called me Peanut.
Oh.
Mom said that's what he always called me, because I was little then. I weighed 6 pounds when I was born.
Oh.
Anyway, I was a little person, and he said, Peanut, don't jump on the bed, please. Daddy's sick. I can remember that.
Wow.
I can hear that.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then I remember the night he died. I can still see us in the living room. Bob and I talked about that.
Mm.
I didn't remember that Bob and Bill were there, but they were.
Okay.
And Aunt Esther and Uncle Bill, I didn't remember that either. But Bob told me about it because he remembered more than I did, you know.
Mhm.
And I remember the night they took him out.
Hmm.
Got in by the piano, came in through the living room, the ambulance. And they had
Okay.
him out on a stretcher, stopped right in front of the piano before they went out through that front door. And he stopped there to say goodbye to us kids.
Huh.
Really?
And tell the brothers to take care of me and Mom.
You can remember that. Yeah.
I do. And, excuse me. And Mrs. Brown, she was a dear Scottish lady that lived across the alley from us. We called her Grandma Brown. And I found a little picture of her not long ago. And she lived across the alley with her daughter and son-in-law and 2 boys. They were around my age. Anyway, she midwifed Gord and I into the world. I don't know who did more, because they lived in the little greenhouse, a green lake house then. I don't know. All I know is he was 6 months old when they moved into the house. But Grandma Brown, they got acquainted, and she midwifed us into the world. And
Mhm.
she used to make scones. I remember that. That was one of the treats of my childhood. Grandma Brown would bake scones over at her house, and she used to bring Mom over some scones for us. I can remember that.
Mm.
Anyway, that was a nice memory. And then, anyway, so I remember that. And then I remember they had a car. Mom and Dad had a car. I have a picture of that too, a funny old car with a kind of a not cloth canvas top, you know, and open on the side. And there's a picture of Dad in it and the boys. I don't know if I'm in that. I think I'm in one. But I remember that when we went somewhere, we were going out to the ranch. And we used to go out the old Bothell Highway. And there was some place along the line there. It was, I think, a service station. and they had ice cream. And I can remember Dad stopping there and getting us ice cream cone. Isn't that something?
Huh.
I remember that. And I can remember being in that car, and of course that was before car seats. And I'm in the back, you see, standing up. And I remember being told that I had to sit down in the seat. You can't be hanging over this. I can remember. So
Yeah.
that's about the limit.
That's amazing for a little
But I've
3-year-old.
got a
though.
little beat up. It's really beat up because I treasured this. Mom saw that I treasured it, and I did. Dad had bought me, I was born in September, that first Christmas. Dad had done the shopping, and he bought me a little teddy bear. It's one of those with the arms moving, and straw filled and stuff. I've still got it upstairs. It's
Oh.
rather beat up looking, but it's there.
That would be fun
And
to see.
his name was Sandy.
Hmm.
And Sandy went everywhere with me. And I was always told as I got bigger that Dad bought this for you, you know.
Mhm.
So-
Very nice thing to have, huh? And you think you still have it? That's astounding.
I do have it.
That's
Yeah.
very cool.
Why don't you
yeah.
stop a minute?
Yeah.
Let's stop a minute.
Okay, sure.
Duncan and Jenny's property. And I think there were 8 students, including the Hunter boys and the 3 Morrises. There must have been more than 8 then. The Hunter boys and the 3 Morris kids. And, well, Aunt Ruth would have been a little later in the chain, so at least Mom and Uncle Bill. And I think the family's name was Breed, one of the other families. Anyway, the few children that were in that original school went there. And then years later, the school district was going to build another school on the property, bigger, because by then other people were coming in around the area. And so the government took the county, or I guess it would have been the county, took 10 acres of the north end of their property to build the school on, and they never built it. And they held that property. Well,
Wow.
since Gordon and Basil have died, and they, all those years, they held that
That a
property.
growing value.
And they never built a school on it. And they sold it, and there's one of the, what's the retirement home, it starts with an S. There's several of them around.
Okay. Don't know.
Anyway, they built one of the Shag, might be Shag. Anyway, one of those big retirement
Okay.
homes is built there on the end of the property. That was
Wow.
before all the rest of it. All the
And
mess
they
with
never
it.
had to make restitution
No,
to
just-
the family for
Just
that land.
barely what was
Yeah.
on the market at the time, which was nothing.
Right. Oh, there is something wrong with that picture.
So,
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Then also, let's see. Phil was also interested in memories you may have of when. Well, you've kind of talked about your mother and your father together. Do you have other memories of those years when you don't? You're saying you were too young and
I don't.
you don't know much
okay.
about. And then was it when your dad died that Grandma started watching other kids, or was that much later?
Oh,
What-
that was much later.
when she started
Mom did,
babysitting. and-
when I was a little kid, Mom did, went out and cleaned houses and things like that. A lot of people couldn't afford that, but there were a few people that hired her. But she never, ever took, as poor as we were, she never took a job that I couldn't go.
Oh.
I
Okay,
went.
take you with
I've spent many an hour at somebody else's table coloring and reading a book and stuff and never
Okay.
ever touching any. But she did that,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, and then later on, well, not too much later, a few years later, she did laundry work like for Mr. Lee, the crippled man that lived up on the corner, and his wife, and all sorts of things like that.
I remember her button box.
Oh, yes.
I loved it. It was so tactile. tactile
Oh, yeah.
to play in her buttons.
Yeah.
Um,
No.
and okay,
No, her
let's-
babysitting days were more when my kids were little. She wasn't babysitting my kids, but she was babysitting a friend of mine. She babysat their kids,
okay.
maybe some younger, but not a whole lot of that.
And am I
Yeah.
correct that on top of everything else, losing your dad, that in the stock market crash, she lost insurance money in the bank?
Whatever they had, she lost.
Was in the
And
bank.
I can,
because
and
that's the
I
safe
don't know
place.
what they had in the bank, but I do remember some of these streetcar rides to town with her. I can remember us riding the streetcar down. It was to one of the big banks, and I'm not sure which it was, but I think it was the big Washington Mutual downtown. I think it was. Whatever was one, I remember it because the lobby had beautiful dark red carpeting. And I thought that was just something to go in there. And I remember we went there because Mom had to go downstairs into the vault to check her coupons.
Oh.
So, see, they apparently had stock at one time. And I remember the coupons being cut and they were no longer any good. Nothing was any good.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah. And of course, in those days, there was some little thing called a mother's pension. But it was just piddling. But Mom never got it because Gordon Moore had paper routes, 2 paper routes.
And made too much money, huh?
That's right. If they were going to have those paper routes, she couldn't have this few little dollars, which were nothing. She said, "We'll manage some other way. The Lord will provide." But she said
Wow.
their
Faith in
father
action.
would want them to be working and helping.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So she never got it.
Okay.
Oh my goodness, astounding. Okay, so yeah, so Grandma really was a single parent for a long
Oh,
time.
you bet she was.
Really, all your life, huh?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
really, she never had any money in my whole life except the $3,000 from the ranch.
Ranch.
Yeah,
Hmm.
isn't that something?
Didn't
Yeah.
know that.
What a
Okay.
hardworking mom, huh?
Yeah.
And there must have been a lot of struggles she had to
Oh,
deal
must
with
have.
on her own. Your kids got sick and stuff, and she had to
Yeah.
find a way to
Mhm.
get to a doctor. Did she ever date anybody?
Oh, no.
This is Phil's question. He went,
No.
I-
She really didn't have, when I think about it, she must have had a terribly lonely life. Really. It must have been
Uh-huh.
so lonely, you know.
that she kind of shut down when
Yeah.
James Gordon
Oh, she
died.
did. She shut
Yeah.
down. I remember Gordon and Basil talked more about my dad to me, and Aunt Ruth later on. Mom never
Oh.
talked about him.
Hmm.
No. I just once or twice in my life do I ever remember. I think this is sad that she didn't talk to me about, or the boys about him.
Oh.
Yeah.
The boys were, I mean, they were still little boys, but they did have lots of memories of him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, they went camping and they did different things. Where
Mhm.
that was before me.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
The only way she could keep him alive
Yeah.
for you was talking
And-
about him.
And talking about that piano,
Mm-hmm.
Gordon and Basil said she played quite well.
Oh.
Uh-huh.
Not to me.
Oh.
That part of her life quit when Dad died. She quit playing the piano.
Really?
And you know, we had a nice home there. Dad never got some of the finishing touches done
Yeah,
before he
okay.
died, but basically that was a nice house.
Yes.
It's,
And-
it still is.
It really was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But that piano, there it was to be dusted. She did let me not thump on it, but she did let me play it a
Oh,
little
but
bit
she
when I was a
didn't
kid.
give you lessons
Oh,
or
she didn't have
encourage
money
you
for that, but
or
it,
teach you
but in one
herself.
point, no way. But in
Mhm.
one point in my life, I don't see, I was still in grade school. Aunt Ruth sent money for me to have piano lessons.
Oh,
Mom had this piano,
okay.
and Aunt Ruth, she was so good to us. She was like a second parent to us. I mean, she lived out there, but she was. And she decided I should have some piano lessons. Unfortunately, the piano teacher was down our road a ways, and she was a 16-year-old girl that went to our church, and her older sister did too. And let us say that she was too young to been put in charge of me, because she wasn't old enough. I don't know how to explain this. I didn't like her at all.
Oh, okay. Try to diplomatically not say that.
Yeah, but I didn't.
Okay.
And she
was just
was
bossy.
someone that could not hold it, take authority that she needed, let us say, at her age, over me.
All right.
And I didn't like that. I didn't try. I had to practice, but I didn't do it joyfully. And it was just a waste of money, and I convinced Aunt Ruth of that. She was disappointed.
My grandmother was disappointed in me too because I never did anything musically. Some of us have limitations though. Anyway, well, yeah, that was great that you had Aunt Ruth and you had other relatives that were close, so they must have been very important.
Yeah, it was.
Uncles and...
But you know, this is a funny thing. I think it's funny. I didn't think about it till a few years ago. I don't know who I was talking to. It dawned on me. I do not, in my whole life, I loved Uncle Bill, and we all did. He's just a wonderful, gentle, and I loved Aunt Esther. She sewed me some doll clothes, and I liked to go to their house. I told Bob that once when we went to see him. I said, I love to come to your house. I mean, I knew Mom loved me. I didn't mean that, but she didn't show affection, and except she kissed me goodnight every night when she heard my prayers. But,
yeah. She had too much she had to hold in all the time.
but I like to go to Aunt Esther's because
she was warm.
I told Bob, Aunt Esther, she sewed. You know, her mother was a seamstress.
Okay.
And Aunt Esther could sew. And she sewed really pretty house dresses. She always, lots of pinks and aqua. And she just looked like you wanted her to look. And their house always had pretty curtains. And I like to go there.
Yeah.
But in all the years I was growing up, I do not remember ever them coming into our house. Uncle Bill came to the door. I can remember that. He would come to the door and he'd bring us, when he used to, you used to go out in the sound and get big salmon, and Uncle Bill shared fish with us, and he was always into hunting, and he always brought us venison. That was the meat we had that he did. He was very generous with that. Mom used to can the salmon, even some. And that was wonderful, but I don't remember them ever coming into our house. And I don't ever remember Aunt Esther. And yet she and Mom seemed to like each other. They were friendly enough. I never heard that they weren't. And that's strange. I didn't think about that growing up. And I don't remember Mom going to their house.
Oh, I see.
I think people had so much to do, maybe.
But you think of that instance where Dad had died and stuff. As I look back on it. And I thought about that a while back. It was strange. Still is strange when I think about it.
Yeah, people were very utility
when I'd go into Aunt Esther's house, they had a breakfast nook, and it was just cheerful and everything you want a home to be. And she was a great pie baker, or cake too. She's a wonderful cook. And there was always something going on at her house. And Uncle Bill always had a big fire in the fireplace. Always did in their fireplace. And of course he had, which I didn't like so much, but he had deer heads. Stuff. They had a den, and they had, animal mounted. I didn't like that part. But their living room was just warm, and
Yeah.
Some people's houses just aren't welcome.
Yeah.
Huh?
Okay.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah. I want to read this to you because Mark Detlef wrote it, and he wrote this. Mom, Rich, and I had the pleasure of staying with Aunt Joyce and Uncle Odie when we were going through a rough time in our lives and had to get away from Tumwater for a while. Joyce and Odie welcomed us with open arms and let us live with them for approximately 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
The two of them will always be a part of a very important point in our lives. Because of this extra connection with them, I got to know both Joyce and Odie a lot better than I ever thought possible. Uncle Odie was a great guy. I guess my question would be, how did Uncle Odie and Aunt Joyce meet? And as a follow-up, how did she know he was the one? So that's Mark Detlef's question.
Okay.
How did you meet Odie? Now you're a little girl.
I met him in the roller skating rink.
Oh.
A bunch of kids in our neighborhood. We used to walk right down Dayton to 85th, and
Oh, really?
the Ridge Rink was down there. It wasn't on Dayton, but the next street over, Evanston, I guess it was. Anyway, it was right on 85th, and it was a Friday night, and these were mostly kids from our youth group at church and neighborhood kids. My friend Bev wasn't there, but other kids that I knew that come down there. Anyway, we went roller skating, and here he was. He's a wonderful roller skater.
Oh,
wonderful.
really?
And kind of can do all sorts of funny things, fancy stuff, you know. And he really looked cute in his uniform, too.
Yeah.
Oh.
He did. Well, he went through the rest of our life kidding me about it, but it was the truth. He'd tell people, I met Joycey. I picked her up in more than one way that night. More ways than one.
Your
Yeah.
skating was not as smooth as his.
Because I was not a good skater.
You probably never had a chance to skate,
Well,
right?
I roller skated, but outside mostly.
Oh, uh-huh.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Okay.
Gordon Moore, when they had these paper routes, that was a wonderful thing. They bought me these roller skates. They pooled their money and bought me
Oh.
roller skates for my birthday or
How
Christmas.
exciting.
Yeah, and mine were fancier than all these other kids that had had skates before me. I still remember it. The pieces that clamp at your toes,
right.
they weren't just straight up clamps
Oh.
like most people had. Mine looked like, you know, when you see a shock from electric.
Yeah.
Oh, like a bolt of lightning,
Yeah.
maybe? Mm-hmm.
Mine were shaped like that.
Oh.
And they were called, I remember it so well, they were called Silver Streak.
Wow.
And
you have a good
oh,
memory,
I did
Joyce.
a lot of roller skating outside.
Oh, okay.
I did.
Okay,
But
yeah.
I wasn't too good in the rink.
I wonder if
Anyway.
your skates got kind of bumpy from being out on the
Oh,
rough sidewalk.
you couldn't take them in. You had
Oh,
to
it
wait
had to be
already.
different. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, you'd think it'd be good both places.
Anyway, that's how I met
I
him.
bet you fell so Odie could pick you up.
Probably. And he probably added that. Yeah.
We all thought so highly of Odie. He was such a quiet guy, but such a capable guy.
Yeah.
And so there, nobody knows enough about him. So there were various people who were asking things about your early years of your marriage. In fact, that's Phil's next question was, how was life for Joyce and Odie in the very early years of your marriage? And I was wondering, was the war still going when you got married, or no?
It
after?
was.
It was. Okay.
But it ended that August. We got married March.
Okay. Yeah.
We probably wouldn't have gotten married then if we'd known the war was coming to an end.
I see.
Because we got married in Long Beach, California.
And he was
He was still
stationed.
in the Navy then, yeah.
Okay.
And if we'd known the war was going to end, we probably would have gotten married at home, you know, closer to home.
Mhm. And I know you talked a little bit our other visit here about Odie and his childhood. He was part or all Indian.
Mostly, I
Mostly
think.
Indian.
Maybe all, for all I know.
Is it Apache?
you-
I forgot which tribe
No,
you said.
it's one of them that started with a C.
Comanche?
No, I don't really.
Oh,
I don't
you
know.
don't know which
Yeah,
tribe.
I don't.
Oh, okay.
I've known, but I don't.
That's that pretty skin color,
Yeah.
though, that he's
Yeah.
got. That
No, they're
Nancy has.
pretty. He used to say I'm heap 164th, but I really don't know what. He didn't know either.
Oh, okay.
Irene Hunter, you know, she was much into genealogy and
Okay.
stuff
Oh,
with the
okay.
Mormon church.
Yeah.
And she was always after, she loved Odie, and he her. And she stayed with us some, you know.
Okay.
And she was always after him. Now Odie, you know, wanting him to find, he didn't know anything about it. I don't think he hardly knew anything about it. And he'd say, well, I'll tell you what, Irene. He says, I can tell you this much, the path will lead right to the teepee door. That's what he'd say to Irene. And that was all she ever got out of him. Because I knew from the older kids, the older Jacksons, just
What a
casual, not
character.
questioning, but casual things through the years, that this was Aunt so-and-so and Uncle so-and-so and Aunt so. I knew there was other relatives,
Mhm.
but, you know, they were cotton pickers, transient carp.
Oh.
That's what Odie, that's how they lived.
So they weren't able to be close and
Oh,
have
no.
a
It
typical
was all they
family
could do.
structure.
No, he lived most of his life in tents or shanty places that they put up for the people that picked their
Okay.
crops and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
When he was 5 years old, he was the youngest. There were 5 Jacksons. He was the youngest, and then he has a younger half sister, Connie.
Oh.
But the other 5, he was the youngest of them. And he was 5 years old the last time he saw his father walking off down the road with a knapsack over his shoulder. And that was, when I met him, Odie told me you know, our families, and
Yeah.
he told me
Mhm.
his father was dead. And it wasn't true.
Oh.
And I don't know at the time if he thought it was, but I think he was just dead in his mind.
Sure.
Okay.
Dead to
And-
him.
Yeah.
And it was easier, I bet, for you to come to grips with your father actually
Oh,
being
sure,
dead
of
than
course.
to have that picture.
So anyway,
yeah.
Yeah.
So
But-
he had a tough
oh yeah,
childhood.
he did. But
What-
you know, those 5 kids, the 4 boys. I mean, I liked Maureen fine, but I wasn't around her that much, and different personality than the boys. But
Mhm.
those boys, I just love them all. They're just warm and loving, and not one of them. Well, Grady ended up having mental problems later on, but he changed. But the other 3, Odie and Ed and Raymond, you couldn't ask for dearer, finer men, and no sign at all of the horrible, horrible life they'd lived,
Hmm.
Hmm.
you know,
Hmm.
and
Interesting.
not a bit.
Just
I
moved
know
on.
that was true of Odie. He was
Yeah,
the
that's
most
the way he was.
gracious,
Yeah.
quiet,
And I remember him,
helpful.
I tell the
I
kids
don't-
this sometimes, I remember him telling me one time, the best Christmas we ever had, he said, we got an orange. That was
That's
just a
nice.
treat because they never got fruit,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here they are picking cotton. You'd think
Yeah.
they'd be in
Yeah.
orange country even, huh?
I don't know.
So,
Wow. Well, when you grow up in simple things like that,
that's
you're
it.
just thankful for everything, aren't
That's
you?
right.
Yeah.
I guess that's why, I mean, he never had a new car or anything like, it wasn't important to him. We couldn't
Yeah.
afford it anyway.
How did Dodie get his education? He was a very educated
He
guy.
went, no, not really. I mean, high school, and then he went to the Boeing schools when he got,
Oh,
when he was in the Navy, that's when he got into radio and things like that. And when he got
Okay.
out of the service, then he went to Central, to night school and stuff, and kept on taking electronics were coming in. And he was one of the early electronic technicians, one of the early ones at Boeing.
Okay.
Yeah, because I remember the story of him flying with a piece of
Oh, he
moon rover or.
Oh, he was down in Florida for a couple of months. That was before the year I was expecting Keith. He was down at Cape Canaveral for 2 or 3 months or something that summer.
That's a long way
that
from
was,
that.
Yeah, that was
Cotton picking, huh?
That was one of the early missiles, the Beaumark it was, that he was involved in.
Oh, okay. I thought he was involved in the moon rover in some
No,
fashion.
that was before his, that would have been a little before his
Oh, okay.
tenure, but some of the rockets leading up to stuff like
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, that he came a long way, huh, from that simple beginning. Gosh, did his brothers go on to be technical people like he was? Was that
Not
kind
really.
of
Raymond, he's quite lame. He has one leg that's. Keith has a little bit of it, but
okay.
Raymond had a lot. You
He
know,
still lives.
he
You're
never-
speaking of him like
they're
he's
all
still,
dead.
Oh, they're all dead now.
Yeah,
Mhm.
all of them, all the sisters
Wow.
are all gone. All 6 of them. Are
Wow.
gone. And now my dear Dutchie, I loved her. She
Mhm.
was Ed's wife. She just died about a month and a half ago.
Oh.
So now I'm the only one
Oh.
of the in-laws
Yeah.
too, of all the couples. I'm the only one.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
isn't that amazing?
Yeah,
That's-
Well, he was a good person.
yeah, he was.
We all knew that. Now, Judy remembers your early years when we were really young, that you had various houses. She was singing about your houses. She can remember a house that she felt was like a cabin, like I was talking
Well,
about earlier.
I think she has to be remembering the project when we lived
okay.
in the project.
Would we have been coming and visiting you?
Yeah,
in those,
I had
okay, that's
you,
probably
you
it then.
you four older kids.
Oh, that's what I wondered. Did Ruthie and Phil get to come too, or was it just Judy, Joe, and I?
I think it was the 3 of you. Ruthie, maybe once or twice, but I think what Judy's probably remembering, we had you come over and you'd spend like a week or the better
Uh-huh.
part of a week. And that's when we went to the zoo and did
Mhm.
different things like that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, we all remember the scariness of getting on that ferry alone and riding with our Piggly Wiggly bags and our stuff for the week or whatever it is.
anyway, so
Yes, so
we
she's.
lived in.
Then there was a bigger house.
When Odie
Okay.
got out of the service.
Wait.
When Odie
I
got
think
out
we're
of the
gonna miss
service, we stayed in San Diego for a little while around his family because we knew we were moving up here, and we lived with Mom. For a while.
Oh, okay.
and-
Oh, I didn't know that.
Gordon and Jean were living here at the same time.
Oh, okay.
And then we had our name on a list to get into a project of war housing. And so we got into the Duwamish Bend project. And that's when we met Ruth. Ruth and Tom, my little friend,
Uh-huh.
still,
Mm-hmm.
who is now 98.
Wow.
She lived they were there first. And we moved in next door to her. So
Wow.
we'd been friends. Well, Kay, her oldest, is going to be 70 this month. And Kay was starting kindergarten when we got acquainted. So we've been close friends all those years now.
Isn't that
65
nice?
years.
That's amazing. It's
Yeah.
like Mom and Emily.
Yeah.
That's nice.
So then, after Duwamish Bend, we right away had our name to get into the better, more permanent still project, but
Mhm.
they look more like regular. And they've been the last few years. They're starting to tear them down, replace them now, but they were
Wow.
nice, you know.
Mhm.
I don't know what's
And
gonna happen.
so then we moved into Holly Park. She might remember Holly Park too. While we lived in Holly Park, Lori was born there. And we lived there for 3 years, 3.5. And that's when we bought our first house. And it was in the South End. And so many, I don't remember.
I might remember that house.
Yeah, you might. It was a nice tall house. You had to go up a flight of stairs to get into the main. Had a nice basement that you just walked in on the level.
Mm.
And the kids always loved that. We had it had been a big wooden coal burning furnace. We had it converted to gas later on, but it was out in the center of this big basement, which you could just go in on the level. You guys probably have been there, I think. Might have. I don't know.
No.
Lori would have been 3 when we moved in. Anyway,
Kerry
and
probably was there.
we put a radio on his workbench, and the kids could roller skate around the furnace. See, it made a big loop, and they and the neighbor kids had a lot of fun there.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we lived there till Keith was born there in the house, and he was starting 2nd grade when we moved out into the little house on 100th,
Oh, all right.
and that's where that's where Jean
Yeah.
left from.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, she left really from the apartment where Carol was born, but that was the last.
House out there.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we lived in that house then
Mhm.
until we bought our house on 100th.
Mhm.
And there we lived for a little over 30 years.
Did you?
32
Wow.
something like that.
I love
Okay.
that house.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I remember it best, I guess would be what I would say. And so then you stepped forward after Jean passed away. You stepped forward and helped Gord out. And Judy was wondering what that was, what those years were like, because we're clear over on the other side. We didn't really see how much pressure and whatever struggles were put upon you as you tried to
With
step
Pam
in
and
and
Lynn.
help Gord at that
I
time.
feel like it was struggles. Carol was with us usually 5 days a week for quite a period, and then Gord. And while Pam was there, she was home for that first year, really, because she's
Yeah.
going to school still.
Uh-huh. She was a senior in high school, or was she done and ready
She was
to
in
go to
college. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway,
And then you had Carol as a baby, just
Yeah.
a little baby, and
Yeah.
Lynn as about a
yeah,
9-year-old.
Lynn was 9. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. Your dad, he was 9 or 9.5 when our dad died, and
Oh,
Lynn was
I
9
see.
or 9.5 when Jean died.
Mm.
Yeah.
I always thought Dad was 13 when his dad died, but I guess
Mhm.
I had him
I
too
don't
old.
think so.
Well, you're gonna know better than I. If you were only 3,
Yeah.
Yeah.
then
Well,
we
Gord
know he
was. Well, Dad died in January. Gord's birthday's in January, so I don't know if he was 9 or 10 on that birthday.
Mm.
And then Moore was, year and 15 months older than Gord, so
Okay.
That's
Oh,
what they
could have
were.
been 11 or 12.
Okay.
yeah.
You know.
They're way too young to lose their dad anyway.
Yeah.
Still, just the years they need them.
Yeah.
Need him. And so then your rhythm of your day became to blend in your kids' needs and school and
When we had
Lynn and-
Carol there as a baby in November, she was born November 21st. That September before that is when Keith started kindergarten.
Mm.
They're 5 years apart.
Okay.
As she got a little bit bigger and could talk, she always called him Keith, my boy. And he used to get up. He loved to on his hands and knees, and she'd sit on his back. And they were great pals when they were little.
Is that cute?
But Pam took care of Carol a lot that early part too. Of the first few months, and until she and Cal, they got married and went to California.
Yeah. Yeah. Did she meet Cal in college or how did they meet?
Well, I don't know. Cal's family lived, 75th up here. They just lived a couple blocks over there. There was another housing project there where Cal's folks lived there.
Okay.
And I don't know if they were actually in school or not.
Yeah.
And of course, they,
Because-
you know, at that time, Gordon and Jean's house was, well, we lived on 100th and theirs was a
Right.
103rd over over the
Yeah.
hill.
Okay.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
Okay.
very nice to be so close together. Okay, Joe. Joe was just wondering the same thing, what it was like to be the younger sister. When your older brother was dating our mother, June Mortensen, when they started dating, do you remember that? And Carol wanted to know that kind of about her mother and father too.
Well,
Stories about
I
that.
don't literally remember more June's dating. I mean, I knew they were,
Uh-huh.
but I don't remember their coming and going and whatnot like
Okay.
that.
Uh-huh.
I remember, I remember most of the wedding, I thought, which years later I find out wasn't. Many years later, when you guys are grown up, I find the only one in the world that didn't know when they
You
got
were
married.
not the only one. None of her kids knew it either.
I thought they'd been married May 28th, and I was there at
Mhm.
your grandma and grandpa's house on 85th, just off Aurora. And Bev, my friend Bev, her mom, I was 10 years old. Bev's mom curled my hair for me with a curling iron. I'd always had straight stick hair, and in those days, you know, we had bangs and straight hair. I've got pictures of me like that. Anyway, Bev's mother curled my hair with a curling iron that day for the wedding. And I thought I was the cat's meow, I'm telling you. I think I had a hair ribbon, I probably did. And I remember that so well. And the wedding was in their big living room, and I
Okay.
remember your Uncle Don, he was just a little squirt.
Uh-huh.
And I remember him being there, and I thought that was their wedding, and I think Mom thought it was. As far as I know, Mom thought it was.
Yeah.
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 It was-
Yeah.
You kids were, you know, it's comparatively not that many years ago that I heard different.
I know. We all were surprised.
And I think that I heard rumors that Gordon Jeans was sort of the same way,
Oh.
where I thought that Gordon was working, he had gone, he was in Alaska, working up there, Seward, Alaska.
Okay.
Okay.
Know what that is.
And I forget how long he was up there, a couple of years or so. And Jean was a year behind him in school.
Okay.
Just like June was in between Gordon Moore,
Right.
and Jean was a year behind. Anyway,
Oh, okay.
a year apart, all of them like that. And I can still see Jean. In those days, you weren't a sinner or anything if you had a fur coat,
Oh.
and Jean had a fur coat, and she was a really pretty girl, pretty
Okay.
woman. And I can remember her. She went to Alaska to be with him, and we thought they got married up there.
Oh, okay.
But I think I have heard rumors, just kind of casual rumors, that they had been married before too, but we didn't know.
Oh.
And I don't know if that's true. I haven't had it verified. I have to ask them. But, I don't know who I'd ask now. That's the trouble.
That's hysterical. People used to really take wedding vows seriously.
Yes, so.
And, and if you knew you needed to be married, you got married. And,
Yeah.
But Grandma must have been hugely disappointed.
I don't know.
If she ever, maybe
I
she
don't.
never
I
knew
don't
that.
know. Mom always loved the two of them, June and
Yes.
Jean. She called us always. I always remember that. I have 3 girls now. June and Jean and Joyce, the 3 J's.
Isn't that
Okay.
cute?
Oh yes, she was very fond of them, all of them.
I never
Okay.
thought of that, but you were all J's.
Yeah.
That's so cute.
Yeah.
Huh.
And they were always, that's one of the early memories I have of your mom, aside from the wedding. When they got married, they rented this little house, well, our house is 103rd and Dayton, and they rented a little house on 104th, just a couple lots off Dayton. So they were, and Moore was working at Greyhound Bus Depot at the time, and June was, well, I think she was 18 then. It seems like she was 18.
She's 1 year younger than Dad.
Yeah, and he worked evening shift quite a bit, so I could go up there and spend time with her. And I always wanted a sister. And I thought this was wonderful to have an older sister. And she was really good to me, and we had fun together.
Yeah.
And she liked to go roller skating. She was
Yes.
a good skater.
She still likes to
Same
skate.
place,
Okay.
Ridge Rink. And so Moore was working, see, but I could go with her in the evenings.
Okay.
She wasn't going out by herself, in other
Yeah.
words, this young married woman.
Yeah.
So I went with her roller skating a few times down there. And then we'd come back to the house there. That's when they had two tricolored collies. Somewhere
yeah.
in my pictures I've got that. I told her about it and she'd like to see it. So far I haven't found it. But it's with these two tricolored collies, Peggy and Molly. I remember them really well. And I don't know how long they lived there, and then they moved over to Burien or White Center or something, and then from there they
White
moved
Center, I think. Yeah.
over to Port Orchard.
And then Carol was wondering if you remember any stories about her parents dating, the dating years for them.
Well, I remember that they took me to my first professional ball game, Gordon Jean.
Oh.
They took me down to Six Stadium. The Rainiers
Oh, my
were
goodness,
playing
yep.
then, Oh, that I hadn't done any big time things in our life, and they took me to that. I just thought that was wonderful. I always remembered that.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember he was going to take, I don't know where they were going, but he took me along. Where he got that car, I don't know. It was a brown Nash Terraplane, I think it was called.
Oh,
I don't know
Joyce, you
where
have a
he got it.
remarkable memory.
Some things. And he took me along on this date with Jean.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember. Maybe that's when we went to the ball game. I don't know. Anyway, I remember going to her house. Her folks were renting a house up on the edge of Queen Anne Hill. That's the first time I was ever at that Cary Park, which is the big viewpoint that you see Seattle of, that they
Yeah.
take it from Cary
Still there.
Park.
Yep.
And so they lived near there. And that night, I don't think it was when we took Jean home probably, there was a huge, that's why I always remember that, a huge fire. There was a great big lumber yard down there, and it was, I think it was called Blackstock Lumber Yard, I believe it was. It was a huge fire. I think it was mostly destroyed, and we were watching it from up at Cary Park. I always remember that, but we had been to Jean's house, and I met her folks. And
Was she an only child, or did she have siblings?
she had
too?
a brother and two sisters,
Oh, okay.
and her brother, Don, he's Don also, he was a senior at Queen Anne when I was a freshman, and her sisters, Jean was the oldest, Jean, Dawn, Lucille, I think was, I don't know if she was sophomore or junior then when I was starting out. And Marilyn, the youngest one, was I think a year or so younger. And she didn't go to Queen Anne. By then the parents had separated, and Marilyn went to Franklin High School in the South End because her mom lived down there then. But I knew the others. And
Okay. I remember Dad talking about how he could remember Gordon standing at the mirror combing his hair and
always.
singing, "I dream of Jeannie
Yeah.
with the light brown
We
hair."
had by Grandma's kitchen door. There was a little more space by the door, and we had a mirror, just a plain mirror with a plain frame. I think it was silver colored, around, and it was there. every time he went out the door, whether it was to see Jean or anybody else, there were a few other people around the world. Let us say he was quite a
Social butterfly?
yes. And Moore had some girlfriends, but not like that. I don't remember Moore being like that. Moore met June, and that was it. There was a girl on the next block, though her name was, oh, what a pain. Her name was Juanita Eckert, only they called her Coo. And she was blonde and kind of little, and had lived in our neighborhood always, there was an older kid in the family. She had a shine for Moore, I'm telling you. And here I was the younger sister. If I'd see her out, I can still remember Coo would say, "Hi, Joyce. Tell Morris hi, won't you?" Like that. She was a pain. Anyway, so she was there, and I don't know who else, because Moore was a very handsome young man.
Yes.
Both my brothers were very handsome.
Yes.
And nice people, and smart they were.
Yeah.
And I loved them.
Yeah, that's what Mom said. She took one look at him and said, "I'm going to marry that guy."
Yeah, I remember your dad. Well, they both had these paper routes, and I don't know what Moore had done to earn it, but he was chosen player of the, I don't know, it was the year or the month or what, but he won a bicycle.
Oh.
It was one of the thinner tired ones, like, and it was blue. I still remember that. And he won that. That was a big thing in our poor family who didn't have extra stuff, or for anybody's kids in those days. Yeah. And he was so thrilled with that. And I can remember one of the first things he did was take me for a ride on it. On the back, I could sit on the seat, and he took me for a ride in it. And what did I do? I got my foot caught in the spokes. But he didn't worry about the bike. He was afraid I'd gotten hurt, which I didn't. I was okay. He was scared. But
did it break the
do you know that bicycle? He didn't have it that long. It was stolen.
Oh.
And we never did get it back or anything.
Oh, isn't that amazing?
I thought it, at the time, and I still do think that was just really rotten.
It is. How unfair.
And Gord, his big thing. I don't know if Moore did it, but our dad had this wonderful big old construction wheelbarrow.
Okay.
Deep barreled, really sturdy wheelbarrow. And we had it there at the house. And Moore used to give me rides in it. Gord, I mean. That's, I remember. I don't know if Moore did, but I remember Gord doing that,
It's fun to be the youngest one sometimes.
Well, it was. They were always. They really were good to me. Good brothers to me.
Yeah.
They were.
Yeah.
Bev had one brother, and that's all, just the two of them. And he was kind of in between my brother's ages, and we used to just good-naturedly compare our brothers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so now Dwight was wondering, getting back to Odie, this electronic mechanical wizard of a husband of yours, did he get your stuff fixed for you? Did he have time to fix your things, or was he one of those?
He was good about it.
Was he?
I mean, lots of times it was done in a Rube Goldberg fashion, but he always managed to fix things.
Yeah.
So figure it out. He'd say, "Someone else figured this out. I can too." That was his attitude.
That's what Dwight says. Man put it together.
Yeah.
Man can take it apart.
Yeah. that was Odie.
I sure know Odie helped Dwight a lot as a young married guy. Oh my goodness. Think of the times we came over to your house and I sat at your table and drank your coffee, and Dwight and Odie were out working on a car.
Odie always liked to do that,
Yeah, he always would help somebody, huh?
Yeah.
He would always help.
He would help me a couple dollars out of my pocket too when we'd have a dollar bet on who would win ping pong.
I'm sure he didn't hesitate
I never
to
came.
take it.
Yeah, I never came home with any
I
Odie
bet
money.
you didn't.
No.
How did he get so good at ping pong? That was the next
I
question.
don't know.
Really?
He was kind of athletic, wasn't he? When you think of he was a good skater, he played ping pong just in a deadly fashion. That, I mean, Joy doesn't think he ever lost.
I don't know. He liked to do it, but well, I mean, we did have that. We had that. It wasn't a regular table, but he got a big thing of
Right.
plywood.
Downstairs.
Remember, that's what we had.
Downstairs, right.
Yeah.
But you had to clap your hands as you opened the door to get the train to run first.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
When you see that ad used to on TV,
That clapper.
clap,
Yeah.
lamps.
Yeah.
Odie was doing that on that train a long time before
He
that.
needed a patent on it. That's what he needed.
The ping pong table, it was in the basement, yeah. But then, after Grandma was gone, after living there, and when Gord built that room on for her back
Right.
then, it was built to a size and with the idea that sometime it would be ours, and we used it. At one time, I guess the girls slept back there, but I don't know, they didn't, because Mom was there and the girls were gone by then.
Yeah.
But so I guess after she was gone, we right away turned it in, and the ping pong table was put back there.
Oh, it did. Okay.
And also we had his dartboard back there.
Oh yes. Forgot about that. Oh gee.
So
Yeah.
that
But
was.
he was
done
so
back
good
there.
at that. Did he maybe learn it in the Navy? Do you suppose they
I
played ping pong?
have
by
no
now?
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was Phil's next question. Was he said, "I know you had Ruthie and Tammy both stay with you at times, which helped them out during a time of great need." But was that as good for you as it was for them?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Ruthie was certainly no problem, and those boys were no problem. They used the big back room that had been Grandma's.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then Tammy, when Tammy came to live, Tammy was there for.
I didn't remember that. Was
Oh,
she going
yeah.
to school? or
Yeah, she was
something?
going to beauty school over here.
Okay.
And
didn't
working
remember.
too. I hardly ever saw Tammy.
Okay.
And because she'd come home from work late, and when I think
Yeah.
about that girl, had a lot of bus transferring and
Hmm.
over here where she wasn't acquainted and everything. It was
Mhm.
anyway, but she'd come in quite late from work, and I really didn't get to know her
Oh, okay.
until soon before she left. Well, she met Alex,
Uh-huh.
and Alex came to the house,
Okay.
a bit while they were dating. I liked him. I did.
He's
I
a
liked
very
him right away.
wonderful.
And
Yeah.
then I think Tammy. I don't remember if she wasn't going to school. Maybe she was just whatever it was. Her schedule was less, and I got to know her more. And I was sorry we hadn't gotten better acquainted while she lived there.
Yeah.
But I really liked him. And
Yeah,
Alex.
Fran's girls are both very
Yeah.
smart
I don't know
and
Lori
very
very well.
hardworking.
I've just met her, at the
Yeah.
picnics. But
Yeah.
I really liked
Lori
Tammy.
is an excellent nurse who just gets all kinds of awards for.
That's great.
And both of them have just sent sons off to school. Spencer is going to automotive school, and Wesley is Spencer's going to automotive, and Wesley's going to Oregon State. And they're both just really bright and capable. So
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I take a break now. Let's stop.
Okay, should we take?
Okay.
Yeah. Go.
Okay. Okay. 3 of Dad's sisters lived in the family home. I assume there was a bigger family home when they were growing up, probably. I don't know that. Anyway, they lived at 13 Ashley Park South. And our grandmother lived with them till her death.
Okay.
Anyway, then, let's see.
What were their names, though, the sisters? Because Anna and then, or do you not know?
No, Anna didn't live in that house. Anna got married.
Anna
The
got
3
married.
aunties
Okay.
never married. 2 of them had been engaged, and they were both killed in World War One. The
Oh,
fellows they were
okay.
engaged to, and the third one I don't know if she ever was.
Mhm.
And they lived together till they died.
Mhm.
And
Do you know their
Anna.
names?
Anna and Nell were the older two sisters. I don't remember which is which. But Anna she married a British fellow, Englishman, and he was in the Navy and Life Navy. And they had one daughter named Anna, our cousin Anna. And so she came over here the time, I don't know if you remember that, Carrie.
I do remember
Okay.
Anna.
And Anna
and,
came with the three aunties.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Didn't know that.
She had spent quite a bit of her time in Scotland living with them during the war because her family lived near London and London was being bombed.
Oh,
And she was one of the kids that was sent to Scotland. Many of them were to,
protect them.
and she lived with the aunties. And that's how she and Martin became really close because he lived up there. So he, and they were first cousins.
Uh-huh.
And then Nell, the older sister, I don't know which is older.
Nell was one of the three.
No.
Nope. Nell's the oldest.
Minnie, Betty,
Mm-hmm.
and Nettie. I mean, it's not her full name, but that's what
Uh-huh.
they called her.
Yeah.
Those three are the
remember
ones
that.
that lived. They were single and lived in the 13
Okay.
Ashley Park South.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anna married, forget his name
David?
now. I think it was Bill.
Oh.
And she had Anna. Okay.
Mhm.
Nell, other older sister, she is married to Bill McCoss, and they had Isabel and Leslie. So that was the cousins. Isabel, Leslie, Anna, and Martin over there.
Okay.
And Morris and Gordon and Joyce over
Over
here.
here.
We were the 7 children.
Okay.
And I always thought I was the youngest. Always did.
Uh-huh.
And here Martin tells me he's 5 years younger than me. I was so surprised. He played on that a lot.
Oh,
Near my birthdays.
yeah.
That's funny.
And Martin's mother, her name's Aunt Mabel, Alex's wife, she had a candy shop. She made candy.
Oh,
That's what she
I
did.
never heard of that.
Oh.
And Martin's quite proud of that.
Mhm.
But the McCosses, they, to hear Martin, the McCosses thought they were a little bit above the working class that
Okay.
had shops.
Mhm.
Oh,
And, Martin, I could tell, resented very much.
Mm.
But as children, the kids
Sure.
and Leslie and Martin and Anna were,
Mhm.
okay, whatever.
Okay. Let's see. So we did Odie's ping pong, which was amazing always. And so, okay. And we talked about Ruthie and Tammy being there with you. Okay, so Josh Jimson wanted to know what kind of advice would you give to the family and
Who's this?
This is Josh Hunter from Texas, Jimson. As an example, you might have a bit of advice for a young adult just out of school or new parents or ones who are just retiring. Is there some wise advice, life advice you would give out?
I'm not too big on that.
Oh no.
Maybe I do. Maybe I do, and you just don't all
Yes,
want to
sir.
tell me, but I try not to.
No advice,
let's
just do
see.
your best. That's one of those thinky ones, huh? Maybe Peter's question would be easier to work with. What is the one thing you have seen change the most in your lifetime that you think has had the greatest impact in our world? Travel, communication, Boy, electricity has even come into houses in your lifetime, hasn't it?
Well, let's see, how would I put this? I think the whole period of how technology has come on so quickly, I think that's done more to change our world than anything in that realm. If you mean human relationships, oh
Yeah, well, I think that's changed human relationships a lot.
yeah, I think that I don't think we were really tough, but I think there is too much liberal. I don't mean politically liberal. I mean liberal thinking in a lot of child raising now.
Mm-hmm.
Too much so.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. That the child raising is a good example of
How
something
things have
that's
changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there isn't the small mini farm to send your child out and work hard like was true
Yeah.
when we were little.
And what was Josh's question?
Josh
again?
was just wondering about if you'd have advice for
Oh yeah, advice.
other, yeah. Or you could tie it into one of my questions. Would you have advice of how to survive tough situations? How do you get through the hard struggles of life? What would you
Well,
tell people?
first, even if you're not active in it, you have to have a strong religious faith. And I wouldn't get through life or have gotten to this point if I didn't have that.
Good for you. Yeah.
Amen. I believe that with my whole heart.
So,
Yeah. If you
That's
truly
good.
believe there's a divine being,
well, I know there is.
yeah,
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Okay.
and I know I'm going to be with Odie someday.
There you go.
Yes, I have that vivid picture of the day Odie died and the fact that he had a smile on his face. Whatever he saw, he wasn't thinking of the sadness of leaving his family.
Mhm.
He was seeing something
Well, you
that
know
was making
something?
him smile.
If you had seen your Grandma Hunter die, anybody that didn't have faith would have had faith that
Really?
day. I'll
Really?
never forget that as long as I live.
Because-
You know, she'd been sick there at our house for quite a while, and Aunt
Yeah.
Ruth had been. We'd had some lady coming in helping, and I was still working. See, and then Aunt Ruth came the last couple of months of her life. She had retired, and she came and she spent most of that couple of months living at our house and
Hmm.
taking care of Mom. Then when I came home from, we all worked it out. Anyway, Mom was fine back in her room back there, and with her
Yeah.
little bell that I gave her, and got to regret it sometimes. But anyway, and then the last while, why she couldn't get up, and Gord and your dad, when he was there, they'd have to pick her up, take her into the bathroom or whatever, and she had just been kind of helpless there, And that day, I'd gone to work. I mean, I didn't know that she was near the end. She'd been like this for a while.
Right.
And I was working at Skyway, and Aunt Ruth, I don't know who sent the call that I needed to leave work, I don't know who did that. Maybe Gord, I don't know. Anyway, and Odie was working at that period. He was working at the Space Center, and so he got a call, and he was going. So I got the message that he was going to come and pick me up, which he did. I picked me up at Skyway, and we got home, and Gord was there, and Moore got. Of course, they had called Moore early too,
Oh,
and
okay.
he was there. June didn't get there. She was on the way. She'd been. I don't know what she was doing at the time. If it was real estate, I don't remember. But she was on the way. The rest of us got there. Mom just passed away just before June got there. But anyway, so here was Aunt Ruth, Moore, Gord, Odie, and I around her bed. This little helpless person.
Yeah.
And I know the caretaker had been there. It wasn't a nurse, but an aide of some kind. Cherry had been coming in and changing catheter for her and stuff while we had that problem, for a while. But this person, she knew the end was up here, coming. And when Mom died, I'm not kidding you, she sat right up in bed like that. She who couldn't get up at all. She sat right up in bed, and she got this beautiful look on her face. I'm not lying to you, Carrie. Every line in her face was gone. She had,
Wow.
Basil and Gordon had told me what a pretty young woman she was,
Yeah.
pretty skin, and she took care of it with her straw hat,
Yeah.
And she sat right up in bed like that, and I'm not kidding you, her face just, all the lines disappeared, and she did like that, and she died.
Wow.
And if anybody had seen her that didn't have faith, they would have had faith.
Yeah.
That's a good message to leave people with, isn't it? As you leave this world. I'm seeing my Lord. I remember you said that she would walk around the house singing that song, I'm Going Home, toward the end of her life, that was the song she was singing. And she had a definite, very deep faith. Well, that's really a beautiful story.
I don't want to not answer Josh.
Well, we can get back to him. You can keep thinking about
Or do you have
about
advice.
that. Yeah.
Right.
And that's kind of the same question of Peter's second question. If you could send any message to the future generations, what would you tell them? And I think the message you just did was a really good one, but there might be
that
something
one,
else.
and I hope that they'll always stay close to the family. I mean, I think this is a special family. I do. I really do. Cherry and Dawn are really good to me. They are. And Keith's good, but now he's going to be up in Mount Vernon.
Yeah.
And when he was down this way, I mean, he's the one that came. Cherry did sometimes. He'd take me grocery shopping, things like that.
Yeah, and they'd
But-
always be
And
there
that's
for
fine.
you.
And he's
They
all
would.
in an emergency. He was always here.
Yeah.
I don't mean it that way.
Nope. Nope. Not
Yeah.
taken that way.
Yeah.
And Nancy, sometimes she's fine and doing well, and other times she's not.
Yeah. Yeah, and she
So-
can't help that.
She has. And let's see, Lori and
Okay.
Nancy, Keith, and like I say, of course now Cherry and Don are going to be retired, and
Yeah.
that Cherry's been so. I'll miss her. I'm going to tell her that when she finally quits working. She's good about. I see her. Every week and a half or so. I see her, and she's stopped on her way home from work. And she's stay a couple hours. It isn't. She just doesn't come in and out like Keith did today. I knew that would be today because I knew he was playing golf, and he said
Yeah.
he'd stop
Yeah.
by, and
Yeah.
he did
Oh, that
stop
was
by.
fun. That was fun to see him. Well, you get what you get with kids as they
Yeah,
get into
you do.
adulthood. That's what we're having to learn too. That you're
Yeah.
just thankful any minute you get when
Yeah,
they come and see
that's
you.
how I have to do it.
Mhm. Yeah.
And he thought when he first, the all at once this commute that he was doing for a couple of months. All at once, it was getting to be too long. Just little hints, and I thought, you know. And of course, Rose raised her kids, and they still live up there
Okay.
in Stanwood and Arlington.
Okay.
And so she would like to be up there,
Sure.
you know. And they're both working. It's a lot.
It's
They
perfect.
wanted to buy a house and
Yeah.
and get out of the condo because they want to have a little yard
Huh?
or a yard. Both of them do, and I'm happy for them. I think he thought I'd lose it when he said, but I didn't. And he said, "Gee, Mom, I thought you'd have something to say, you know." I said, "Keith, I'm happy for you to do whatever's going to make you happy, you know."
Mm-hmm.
So, and I mean that. And then, but the bums, I mean, they move up there and Cherry retires in practically the same time. So all this is here, and I'm getting to be 88, and they're, you know.
And that kind of is scary to you.
Yeah.
But this is only the first step of it all, and you're going to see how it develops as time goes.
Yeah. No, I'm not kidding you. I am happy for them.
Yeah.
I'm happy for them.
Yeah.
I
And,
bumped it.
and I still know if, you know, and Keith would come in a minute, you know.
Absolutely. They'll be here if
I
you
know
need
that.
them.
And Don,
Yeah.
you know, like, and he's right over here, you know, when I was sick. Don's been a wonderful son-in-law to me.
Mhm.
And Eric was when they were
Yes.
around. I loved Eric.
Yes, me
I
too.
still love Eric.
Me too.
And
We need
so-
to get hold of that boy and find out where he is. That's what shake
Yeah.
him good.
so anyway, no, they've been good. And Cherry's
Yeah.
she's quiet and all, but she's there,
Yeah.
steady, and I'm happy for her. I told her, she called me a week ago Sunday. They had just come back. They had a 2-week sport trip. You know,
Yeah.
you probably know
Yep.
about that.
Yep.
And so they got home on a Monday night, and she called. "We're home, Mom. We got in safely, you know." And so I said I was glad, and that was the end of that practically that conversation, you know. And then that was a Monday. And Tuesday, I thought, oh, hopefully they'll sleep in a little today, and they'll go grocery shop. All that. I didn't think I'd see her that day. Didn't hear from her Wednesday till evening. She'd been working already, back at work.
Oh my goodness.
Back at work the Wednesday after, and I think she worked, I don't know, Thursday she was off. That's the day she came to see me then, and stayed a while.
Mhm.
And then that
Gosh.
Sunday, I get a phone call telling me that she wants to take me out to lunch for my birthday, but it's got to be on Tuesday because I'm working on your birthday. And this is the week after. And she said, and I said, well, that's fine, you know, and I'm going to ask Bev. And I said, oh, that'd be nice, you know, which she did. And then she says, well, it's this way, Mom. I'm working the next 7 out of 10 days. I said, it's funny, I had a rumor you had retired.
Yeah, what's
Yes.
going on, Joyce? Is she subbing for them or what?
Well, see, the deal is her retirement official date is going to be, I think she's going to officially be done on the 20th of October.
Oh.
But she had put in her, in order to keep on being a nurse again, she would have had to take, I guess it's every 10 years, they have to redo all their tests and everything. Well, she's done it a few times since she's been there 45 years. And she knew she was going to retire this year, and the date came up, I think, in May.
Oh, okay.
And so she put in her word that she was going to retire, and then she did not take the tests. But for 3 months after, which will end in October now, after the date she had put in her, you know, when she told them, she has to work 3 days a week per diem on call. She can turn down any days as long as it's 3 days a month. That keeps her eligible for, I don't know
Oh,
if
I
it's her
see.
insurance or what,
Okay.
but only for 3 months. At the end of that time, she will no longer be a registered, you know, to work anywhere.
Mhm.
So some of these days put together were part from August and part from September. And then she gets them together in a wad like that, and then she'll have the rest of the month
Aw.
free to go camping.
Oh,
And
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
so that-
Cherry is the only person I can think of in my whole life that from the time she was a little girl said, I'm going to be a nurse. She always knew that.
That's right.
And it's so fun now, especially fun for us to go camping with her, to see them really celebrate all those years of her having been
well,
a
she,
nurse.
I don't know who started it, if it was Aunt Ruth or Grandma or me. Somebody started her when she was just a little girl, because they were all readers in those years, and on the Cherry Ames student nurse. That was the first one.
That was,
And there was a whole set of those,
Oh,
which I
okay.
could just kick myself. I don't know what happened to those.
Oh.
Anyway, that was it. She read that one book. That's what I'm going to be when I grow up. She wanted every book, and she never changed her mind.
Never did.
And she still likes her job.
Wow.
You know, her girlfriends that she went to nursing school, there's about 4 of them. They've stayed close friends. I mean, they're here and there, but they've all retired. Cherry's still hanging in there.
She's-
And they all giving her a
Okay.
hard time. you
Yeah.
know. So they're not going to have, she's not going to have an anniversary party. They aren't planning a party for her.
Retirement.
But the 4 couples, or 5, whatever, I guess it'll be 4, they're all going after the final one, I guess. I don't know where, somewhere in this time period, they're all going down to Sun River.
Oh.
And they're going to have a long weekend together, the couples. So
How
this
fun.
is for the celebration of all of them being done now.
Okay.
Very fun. She learned the lesson from her mother of being a good, long-time friend. Is there anything else you would like to say to the rest of the family to kind of close it up? I don't have any more questions, I don't think, other than Josh's one about what advice would you give, or what do you want people to know about you that they don't know?
Oh,
Well, we don't need to go there, but I know it's been really fun thinking about this interview, because I consider you to be one of the best people in the world. I mean, really a good person that helps people when you can. Always, you were the one that would step forward and help wherever it was needed.
thank you.
You
Carol.
would do it.
Thank
And
you.
you've been my role model all my life. Of course, my middle name is Joyce, so
Absolutely.
we are cemented together. So I don't know. Do you have any final words of wisdom you want to give us?
Seems like I should come up with something
Well-
really profound.
Well, I do have one question before we really do summarize. I'm behind the scenes here, but think of all of your nephews that you have throughout whatever they are. I don't know how many they are, but probably which one is your most favorite
Well,
nephew?
obviously, Dwight.
Well, I think that's a wrap.
The voice coming from behind the camera is Dwight, and the voice of the interviewer is Carrie. So is Dwight and Carrie Hodgen doing this. And we thought it was important to get down some of the family history information. And now I realize what a wonderful memory Joyce has. She knows all kinds of stuff still that we didn't know about. So I think this is going to be a great interview. It picked up the sound of the question.
Oh, okay.
well.
Now it's doing. I think that's what it's doing. And then if I push that, it goes. No, I don't know what it's doing. It's going there, and now it's doing. Oh, no. See, it doesn't tell
And
me.
you want to be rustling the papers in the back.
It doesn't tell me about that, though, hon.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, there it
I
is.
don't know.
27 minutes, 48 seconds left.
Or it'll quit, and we'll
Okay.
quit when it quits.
Yeah.